if I'm any example, like there is no first job necessarily that's going to set you up or be the silver bullet for a career in relationship management or stakeholder management. I think it kind of goes back to what we said at the beginning, right? Like you really have to lead with empathy. It's about those softer skills of being somebody who is service minded and thinking about how they can give their unique skill sets, their network, their relationships, their subject matter expertise to a company, whatever form that may take.
Hi, Melina. It's good to finally have you on the podcast. Thank you so much for taking the time early in the morning, 8 a.m. on a Tuesday.
At least it's not as hot at this hour in New York. It's been so muggy.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But I think what I was really excited about is your role in JP Morgan's Innovation Economy division. I think it's pretty exciting because whenever we talk about technology and startups, we typically talk to, venture capital investors or startup founders. But I do believe that given Women Who Build season four's, point of view on systemic view to company building, I believe your inputs will be very beneficial going forward. So thank you so much.
No, I appreciate that. Super excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Melina, let's start from the beginning. What led you to pursue a role focused on venture relationships?
So in many ways, it was sort of a happy accident. I had started my career in consulting in the Northeast, actually working with kind of the largest corporations, Fortune 500 level, kind of helping them think through their own growth and innovation strategy. And somewhere along the lines, I became more interested in the disruptors, the dreamers, the innovators themselves, right? The startups that were actually trying to kind of break the ceilings and think outside the box of traditional industries. And just bring innovation to the forefront. And so ended up moving to Silicon Valley into San Francisco because I wanted to be sort of at the beating heart of startup innovation and the venture capital ecosystem, and kind of fell backwards into venture banking as a way to sort of be at the forefront or the cutting edge of getting to support some of these founders, even if in some small way, along their journey to bring technology right to the masses. And so it was just this idea of being in a privileged position to support not only just the founders, but the investors as well, that are oftentimes taking early bets on these builders and ideas that might just be chicken scratch on a napkin, and helping be kind of a strategic advisor and supporter in helping them achieve those dreams. So it's been now almost a decade in venture banking, and I haven't looked back, but it certainly was not kind of where I started my career and where I'd intended to go. And so I guess some things are just best left to lovely serendipity.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Just talking about venture banking and also your work at Innovation Academy at JP Morgan. What do you do? What does your day-to-day look like?
Yeah, so I'm an executive director on the venture capital coverage team at JPMorgan. And our role really is to work with the venture capital funds, the GPs, general partners of those funds, and their portfolio companies, and be that supportive helper, helping kind of connect all of the different moving parts across the JPMorgan ecosystem. So the Innovation Economy Group, JPMorgan has long worked with venture-backed companies, but I'd say we really sort of formalized the effort in 2016 and then actually expanded that internationally in 2021. So it's been a huge area of investment for the bank. We now have over 400 dedicated bankers just servicing the venture-backed ecosystem, including my team, which is of course focused on the investor piece. With the idea of hopefully bringing kind of to bear the full resources of the firm. So whether it's, working with companies from day zero, articles of incorporation through post IPO and beyond, making sure that we are introducing the right parts of the platform at the right time to support them on their journeys, of course, from a banking capacity, but even beyond. And so whether that's the commercial bank, the investment bank, private bank and asset management, making sure that we're looping in each line of business and really making all of those resources fully available to companies. And that looks very different, right, depending on the stage. I think it's really important to make sure that we are not overwhelming founders and investors with all of it all at once.
Yeah.
But I very much think of my role as the primary care physician, right, at the center of the equation, thinking about your health holistically. It's my job to kind of loop in the right specialists at the right time, depending on your needs, and make the firm feel small. And so that's kind of where I spend my time.
So when you say that you work with the venture coverage team, does it mean that you engage with startups by engaging with the venture capitalists first? And that's when you get access to, these startups, and then you understand what are the solutions that you can provide them with. Is that right?
Exactly. So we have several different kind of partners that are touching the innovation economy ecosystem at JPMorgan. Many of our bankers are working closely with founders, with management teams of the startups themselves. Think of us as two sides of the same coin. We are focused on sort of board level investor relationships, making sure that we are driving alignment across both, advocating for venture firms within the four walls of JPMorgan, and just bringing that investor perspective to bear internally and externally. So really sort of hand in hand, just given the important role that venture capital investors play in company formation and support.
And is there a specific stage of venture capital or startups that you engage with? The point being, do the startups have to be in seed stage for you to engage with the venture capitalist, or Series A, B? I'm just trying to get a sense because we've known traditionally JPMorgan as being a later stage bank. But obviously, as per what you just said, it seems like you engage earlier as well. So what does that look like?
Yeah, I think it's been an exciting evolution in terms of our business practice and our platform. We very much want to work with both companies and funds of every shape and size. And on the company side, really, it could be articles of incorporation before you've raised any institutional financing. We have banking products, right? Like tailored products that are going to help you kind of get that company off the ground, all the way through to post IPO. And the fund side is the same, right? I work closely with everything from emerging manager, pre-seed and seed funds, all the way through to more established, larger institutional multi-stage funds. It's really about wanting to work with partners that have a vested interest in being long-term, active, influential players in venture. Also are interested in building a relationship with JPMorgan. I think we very much want to have, kind of a bi-directional communication and true partnership with folks in the ecosystem. And so kind of seeking out those investors and those companies that want to build with us for the long term is how we sort of think about where we spend our time.
And you've started working with these earlier stage companies, so pre-seed and seed companies, very recently. So just looking at how you fleshed out the strategy internally, what levers did your team really focus on first, and how did it progress?
Yeah, so I mean, I think in general, when you're in a client service role, it always starts with empathy. And so I think it was very much trying to put ourselves in the shoes of our earliest stage founders to understand what their needs and desires were from a banking partner, and making sure that we had tailored products that really fit those needs. It's always, I think, a journey of like innovation and iteration, and it's something that we're investing heavily in building out. For example, our digital banking and online banking platform, but thinking about it in a way that was going to be familiar and a nice experience for our early stage founders. Maybe that's bringing in kind of more of that retail experience so that it feels like something they've used in their personal life. And so, I think for us, it was very much making sure we had dedicated tailored products and then also a dedicated banking team. So, we've hired a number of bankers to really service kind of the earliest stages of the banking segment. And so when you kind of join JPMorgan as a pre-seed or seed stage founder, you've got a dedicated banker that understands the venture journey, works with companies of that stage, and kind of help you see around corners, and is, again, that connector, that connective tissue that helps bring in the different tools across the platform, depending on what your needs are. And obviously that looks different for everyone.
Right.
But yeah, starts with empathy and trying to really understand what these founders need from us and building towards that.
So what I'm hearing is that innovation economy is this like one connective tissue or connective stakeholder for the founder to engage with. And then as you understand the needs of the founders, you speak with, the investment banker, the private banker within your firm. So if I'm a founder, I will always have Melina and someone else from, the requisite banking team who would be of help to me, right?
Exactly. You're always working with humans.
Right.
You've got a team of folks that, again, are specialized to help you with whatever it may be that you're working through. Maybe it's liquidity management, right? And you want to talk to somebody in our treasury management team, or it's FX as you expand internationally and you're thinking about how should I, manage my FX hedging strategy if I'm operating across multiple currencies. And I think that's just the beauty of the breadth of the platform and the tools that we have that become available to our clients.
In a recent report by JPMorgan, it was noted that both the VC and PE deployment rates fell in Q4 2023. And in this scenario, how does JPMorgan support startups solution-wise and also psychologically, honestly?
That's a good question. I guess I would start by saying that we try to support our clients the same way in times of, froth and bull markets, the same way we would in macro softness. So in terms of like our consistency and our support, like we are not fair weather partners. We are here to kind of weather any storms that may come your way with you. That said, I think you're right. We've seen a little bit of a reset in venture. There's certainly some softness across the M&A markets, the technology IPO markets, a bit of a decline in terms of kind of venture capital deployment. And so, I think for us, our clients are looking to us for consistency, for safety, and for security. And so we try to just be consistent partners. Again, I think a big part of the platform and part of the reason that folks like to come to us is that we have worked with so many clients across so many stages, sectors, geographies, that we very much have this like rich subject matter expertise and rich client experience that can help us advise clients and see around corners, especially in times of turbulence. These founders have enough going on in terms of building their businesses and innovating and kind of, again, breaking those ceilings. They don't need turbulence in their banking partner. They need someone who's going to be consistent, safe, but also somebody who can be an insightful advisor and kind of help them navigate through some of those bumps in the road. And I think it's during times of volatility or unsettled markets that it's more important for us to stand kind of shoulder to shoulder with our clients and kind of weather those through with them. And so that's what we try to do. You want to keep the lights on. Like banking is one of those things that you don't want to have to think about, because if you're thinking about it, oftentimes it means that there's an issue. Trying to make sure the lights are running, things are moving smoothly. We're helping kind of, proactively or preemptively think about what your next needs may be so that you can focus on building your business.
And are there specific teams within these startups that work with you, or is it usually the founder?
Earliest stages, it's usually founder CEO, just because typically at the early stage, we don't see many companies kind of having a more developed finance organization. As companies mature, that point of contact may change to a CFO or a VP of finance. But I'd say we very much try to work with the management team holistically. And, oftentimes it's a hand-in-hand relationship, right? If the CEO is kind of helping set the vision of growth strategy, the CFO is kind of helping execute that at the financial operational level. And so we're very much kind of chatting to both. And of course, chatting to the board members, making sure that they're fully aligned with some of the decisions that we're all taking as a team. It's a holistic team approach for sure.
So do you attend one of those board meetings, or how do you connect with board members?
We typically don't attend board meetings. I would say very much it's a conversation directly with CEOs and management teams of companies.
Got it. And as I told you before, season 4 of Women Who Build is about taking viewpoints on the same topic from different kinds of stakeholders, right? And a banker is so important nowadays, also given the fact that there are different structures, capital structures, that founders need to be aware of, and they may not necessarily be aware because they do not have a background in finance, right? And therefore, as you suggested, that earlier stage companies do not have a finance team, a full-fledged finance team. So when do you think is the right time to get a CFO or a VP of finance for these technology companies? And does it vary sector by sector?
It almost varies company by company, right? Like, especially in this day and age where I think letter-based financing doesn't mean as much, right? Like a seed stage company can look very different based on the sector, very different based on the individual company to another Series A company. It's really an individual decision of when are you really starting to formalize some of those financial operations? When does the CEO or founder or COO or whoever's been kind of taking charge of finance start to need some of that to move off of his or her plate, right? And bring in another individual with true expertise in that sector who can kind of think more strategically about how they want to be managing the finance of the business.
Right.
So it's really hard, I think, to paint a broad brush and say, this is the moment when you need to hire a formal finance team. Typically, probably when you're raising your first larger round of institutional capital is when we start to see companies think about that and formalize that hire. But some companies do it early on. So it really just depends.
Yeah. I think it's a lot about the talent and understanding of the team as well, of finance. I mean, in India, founders struggle big time because I've observed that not too many operations are formalized and standardized, specifically when it comes to finance, because they're like, go, go, go when it comes to their innovation, their startup. But the finance concept or understanding is definitely lacking.
Oh, completely, totally agree. And I think
Yeah.
that's why we're here, right? In
Yeah.
part, while we're not going to be your outsourced CFO, we
Right.
are true financial experts and can kind of help you think through some of those decisions and navigate those milestones.
Right.
And so I think that's also the importance of having a partner on the banking side that truly understands the finance of the business and what goes into a balance sheet. How do you read a P&L, right? Like all of those moving pieces that are going to help you
Yeah.
think levers that you can pull and push in your business.
So, Melina, how is venture debt doing? How should startups think about this financing instrument, as taking on venture debt might mean that startups halt their growth plans to focus on interest coverage, because that's an important part of when you take on venture debt as well. So, how are you thinking about that instrument and advising startups?
So I think back to the conversation that we've been having, like capitalization strategy and financial operations are a very personal company by company decision, as a decision to take on debt. And so, at any stage of the business, that's the conversation that a founder, a CEO, their management team, and their board has together about whether it's the right stage, what the use of proceeds are, how we want to leverage that debt, and if now is the right time. We think of ourselves as partners to help founders execute on that strategy. We are not setting that strategy. So it's very much a decision that we're here to kind of support you on, but not necessarily push you to do. I think venture debt can be an incredible tool, especially minimally dilutive, that can help you accelerate growth, fund working capital swings, give you some additional runway, right, to achieve business milestones before a next raise. And it's a tool that we see a lot of founders and companies use extremely well and very much to their benefit, but it's not meant to be a bridge loan. And so I think if you're ever kind of in a position where you're really trading off debt service versus growth, it's a conversation to have, again, as a management team with your board, with your banker, about, is debt the right option for me? Thinking about funding some of this differently. So, I think the venture debt market continues to be healthy. We are certainly open for business and excited to be working with many founders and kind of helping them think through that strategy and putting facilities in place. But it's a decision that I think is happening on a company by company level, depending on kind of this, status of the business and what they're trying to achieve with that debt cap.
So, Melina, talking about relationships, because a large part of what you do is, or rather involves relationship building and stakeholder management. So why is relationship management key to your ethos as a bank, and what does that look like? And for other professionals looking to build a career within the relationship or stakeholder management component, how do you get started? What are the core skills that you build, and what first job should they take?
Oh, that's a hard question. I guess I'll start with your second set of questions. If I'm any example, like there is no first job necessarily that's going to set you up or be the silver bullet for a career in relationship management, or stakeholder management. I think it kind of goes back to what we said at the beginning, right? Like you really have to lead with empathy. It's about those softer skills of being somebody who is service minded and thinking about how they can give their unique skill sets, their network, their relationships, their subject matter expertise to a company, whatever form that may take, right? Of course, within JPMorgan, that is through the lens of being your banking partner. But oftentimes it's beyond that, right? It's really being that strategic advisor. And so the soft skills, I would say focus on building your network, say everything, like take all the coffee meetings, because some of your best relationships you will build earlier in your career. And that trust and that reciprocity kind of builds over time and ends up being, relationships that can be super fruitful and productive as you mature professionally. I'd also say spend time building a point of view, right? If you really want to be a relationship manager, a strategic advisor to your clients, you want to feel like you have something that you can give, whether that is deep subject matter expertise or intellectual curiosity and understanding of trends and inflection points in a particular space. Or maybe it's an incredible network and you can help make the right connections at the right time to a customer, an investor, a partner, another founder on a similar stage of the journey. You can help them think through some of their pain points. And so building out that kind of softer ecosystem of skills, I would say, is so key. The job itself, I think, matters less than kind of desire to be of service to the client. And that's part of the reason I truly really valued the idea of coming to JPMorgan was this is an organization that is fiercely committed to just exceptional client service. And so whether we're working with a company that is two gals with a dog in a garage and a great idea, or one of our larger public clients, that level of dedication to servicing that client is the same.
Right.
Which kind of answers, I think, the first part of your question. Like client service is just core to our ethos as a bank. It starts with empathy. It starts with, preempting those needs on behalf of the client, figuring out where we can go above and beyond to add value. It's not just a checking account, right? It's making sure that we are introducing a private banker at the right time to help you think through your own wealth planning ahead of a liquidity event, or an investment banker that's going to help you understand trends that we're seeing in your sector and how you should think about valuation and an exit path down the road. And so that's just core to who JPMorgan is. And I think a big part of why I was excited to join was that ethos very much resonates, I think, with who I am.
Yeah.
Just someone who's seeking to give and be a problem solver for the folks that we support in the ecosystem.
That's great. You mentioned coffee chats. How many coffee chats do you have per week?
Many. I'm often over caffeinated. I spend most of my time, I would say, meeting with investors and meeting with their portfolio companies.
Right.
So a lot of it is sitting down, trying to understand, okay, pulse check. How are you feeling about things? What's coming down the pike? What's top of mind for you? What are your pain points that we can help solve for? And a lot of it happens over coffee. So in addition to tea.
I'm actually looking for a coffee alternative because I think it makes me anxious and dehydrated. But you got to do those coffee chats. So
it's part of the investment. Decaf, I guess, Way to go.
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. Well, I think you mentioned something very interesting towards the end of, just planning for this kind of career, which is thinking about valuation, helping founders think about valuation and where the markets are progressing. Now, very interestingly, I'm working with this founder who is in the consumer tech space, and he's very early on in his journey. And he has his revenue projections. Of course, the markets will change, the startup will change, the business will change. But just to sort of, because I think venture capitalists now are more cautious of how the valuations will turn out or how the exits will turn out in the future, right? They are modeling that out even in pre-seed stages, given the market conditions. So when you think about a company that is that may go public, what is the basic minimum valuation that you would want, if at all, for the company to go public? Is there a minimum threshold nowadays, and has it changed dramatically versus what it was before, or what does that look like?
It's very hard to say with a broad brush. It's
Yeah,
again gonna be company specific,
yeah,
sector specific. It will
right.
look very different in technology to life sciences to consumer products. The good thing is that we have investment bankers in
Yeah,
equity capital markets that are sector specialized and focus across all of those, and so can kind of see some of that nuance.
yeah,
I think to your point, I think we are seeing founders and investors be a little bit more exit minded earlier on, not
right.
necessarily exit focused, right? It's still about, are you building a technology, a product, a service, a solution that's really moving the needle and is
Mm,
necessary in this ecosystem?
right.
And are you building that in a way that's capital efficient and thinking about unit economics and the true fundamentals of the business, versus necessarily trying to kind of back into a valuation with kind of a public exit or a strategic acquisition in mind?
Right.
But I would say it's just hard to generalize.
Yeah.
And there are clear kind of thresholds or benchmarks without getting more specific into the company, the sector, the stage.
Melina, now I would like to double click on your journey again. And we all talk about, okay, what we have been doing, our successes, etc. But I think a lot of who you are today has got to do with who you were in the past, right? And what your learning has been so far. So what was the most challenging part or story of your career, and how were you feeling at the time, and what did you learn from it?
To be totally honest, one of the hardest moments of my career was probably some of the market disruption that we experienced last year, especially in the venture capital ecosystem. I think what was challenging about that, as somebody who has spent so much time in this ecosystem and has been so dedicated, I think, to working with investors and founders in this particular niche of the private capital markets, was just the turmoil that they experienced and the turmoil that's ensued, right? Like, I think we've seen a lot of volatility and softness in the venture ecosystem, that's been challenging for founders and investors alike. A lot of them are having to have tough conversations, or think through, pretty critical decisions about their business, about their funds. And so, of course, I'm hugely optimistic, I think, about what is to come. There's so much to be excited about in terms of both what's happening in the advent of AI and other really exciting technological booms. I'm, even just companies kind of building in more capital efficient ways, having made some of those tough decisions last year. But certainly, it's been an interesting journey the last 12 months. And I think that catalyst last year was just challenging to navigate, when you really want to see this ecosystem succeed.
Yeah.
So, I think the silver lining has just been that a lot of us have learned a lot coming out of that. I started my career pretty much in a bull market. It's been the first sort of downturn, or reset that I've really lived through. If you kind of scratch aside kind of the momentary V-shaped inversion of the pandemic. And so I think it will only make us stronger moving forward, kind of having come out of those lessons. But it was certainly challenging. And I think we'll continue to see bumps in the road. And so hopefully it just makes me and us better partners to companies and to funds as we navigate those in the future.
Absolutely. No, I agree. And I really like your point of just ecosystem growing together, learning together. And I do believe that, when we speak with other people who are in the ecosystem and when we realize that they are going through something similar, there are so many solutions that come out of those conversations. It's exciting, honestly. Yeah.
I have so much respect for the journey that founders and investors are on to really disrupt and innovate and create a better future. And so even if there are bumps in the road, like I couldn't be prouder to kind of be where I sit and a very small part of that journey for them.
So outside of work, what do you like to do?
Well, I love traveling. My father is from the Netherlands, my mother is Colombian. So I spent my childhood growing up between several continents and
Right.
still really enjoy that. I think, again, just like the learnings you get from experiencing different cultures and different ways of life it's second to none. So my husband and I really enjoy traveling. And we really enjoy the outdoors. We, like you, moved to New York in the last year and had spent the last 7 years living in San Francisco. And so we really miss our hiking and our nature and our easy access to skiing, but are very dedicated to making that happen even on the East Coast. And so when we can, we try to get away for ski vacations in the winter. We love Deer Valley, we love Big Sky, we love Jackson Hole, and getting outside and being in nature. I grew up for the most part in Maine, so anything on the water, whether it's sailing, hiking, boating, swimming is just like my happy place. And so when I can, I try to escape New York, and just be out in the greenery.
Where was the last time you traveled to?
My family and I took a trip to Belize
Okay.
over the holidays last winter, and we did a week on a sailboat scuba diving, which was super fun. Highly recommend Belize for anyone who hasn't been. If you're a diver, their marine fauna is almost second to none.
You have a diving license?
I do, yes. Yeah, I am open water certified, hoping to become more advanced over time, but hard to get in diving with banking.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I like it. I mean, I tried once in India. I was scared to begin with, but I do plan to go again and then potentially getting my license. So we'll see.
You can do it. It's amazing. It's like a whole nother world underwater that you get to be part of. So
Yeah, they tell me it just stills your mind, stills
yeah,
your, yeah.
it's very meditative because you're breathing, and highly recommend, especially if you are type A ambitious, as I said, you are similar to me.
Well, thank you so much, Melina. I had a great time chatting with you, and I'm sure people who are looking to get engaged with venture coverage and stakeholder management roles, I believe, would definitely benefit from it. And will be excited to have coffee with you potentially. So thank you so much for taking the time.
I would love that. Thank you. Appreciate it. And yeah, look forward to chatting again soon, Shreya.
Thank you. Bye.